Hello and welcome to Off My Shelves, and in this episode we're going to be looking at The Forgotten Painter, Thomas Girtin by Oscar Zárate. Let's get underway. This book is published by Self-Made Hero. It's a wonderful hardback book, brilliant sewn binding, really nicely made. It's part of the Art Master series as well. Basically, Self-Made Hero have collected a series of books together and put them under the banner of Art Masters, and they're all looking into famous artists throughout history. Some not as famous as others, but all fairly notable artists in some way, shape or form. And Thomas Girtin being one of those notable artists, a watercolourist from the late 18th, early 20th century that was friends with J.M.W. Turner and all that type of thing. As the blurb on the back says, part modern fiction, part historical biography. And it really is that, because it focuses on three people, three middle-aged or slightly later people, all based in Britain, and they're all attending an art class. And in that art class, they are studying what they love best, creating art every week, doing a different theme and all this type of thing. And so you got Fred, Sarah and Arturo. After the art classes, they tend to go to the pub and have a pint and talk more about art. But they really live and breathe the art. Obviously, they all do their own day-to-day jobs, and they've got their own lives, but the art classes come across as like the centre of their the highlight of their week. It comes across more than anything. In one of these art classes, Fred, who is a bit of an art historian, has discovered a painter called Thomas Girtin. Now, he can't wait to get to class that week because he wants to tell Fred and Arturo all about this brand new watercolourist he's discovered, and that he can't believe that more people are not talking about him and more people are not, voicing how great his landscapes are. He goes to the pub, starts telling them about Thomas Girtin, and that's when you start getting the historical narrative of Thomas Girtin. His history is very unknown, so there's a lot of ifs and maybes, but that leaves loads of space for these three characters to discuss the maybes. So most of these meetings in the pubs or the conversation they have in each other's houses or walking down the street starts off with, an historical fact, like maybe Thomas Girtin has cut his hair short to be more in line with, the revolutionaries in France at the time and things like that. Maybe it's noted that he had a particular encounter with Turner, or that he was travelling to a certain place in a certain time to do a landscape. All of those things are quite basically known, but their discussions with each other just flesh them out. Oh, I wonder if this happened to him. I wonder if this happened to him. And the more they get to know his history, the more they feel they get to know him. So the more elaborate their kind of fantasies about his life get, I wonder how Thomas Girtin would have experienced this moment in time happening there. Thomas Girtin was living there in Covent Garden at the time. I wonder how he would have experienced it. The other thing to keep in mind is that part modern historical fiction. So you are getting the lives of Sarah, Arturo and Fred. Now each of them have got their own narrative story thread going through the book. Some are better than others. Fred's story is all that he gets sacked, and basically he's a whistleblower in work who gets sacked, and he's got some evidence and he's getting bullied and victimized to give over some of that evidence. That for me was the weaker of the three stories, of the personal stories, but I think that's because Fred is the investigator of Thomas Girtin. So whenever Fred is on, Fred almost kind of gets like double featured in here. So you get his personal life, but you get a load of him going to galleries, making bookings to see artwork that's not on display, because as a watercolourist, watercolours are typically not on display in most galleries because they get very affected by natural light and things like that. So he's booking to see artworks and things like that, and researching and travelling to places that Girtin had done paintings from to try and understand and relive those moments Girtin went through. And so he's literally like making a trip, on the weekend to Wales to find the exact moment, the exact place rather, that Thomas Girtin painted this particular landscape. Sarah is a very religious Christian woman who is quite unfulfilled. She's becoming a grandmother, but she gets a letter from a friend to visit an art exhibition that a friend is putting on rather. She's quite embittered about going to that art exhibition because she's so jealous, and that jealousy of her friend pushed them apart back in the day because she thought that she could never be as good as her, and because she considers herself such a good Christian, those feelings of jealousy and resentment and all that didn't sit well with her, so she kind of buried them deep and hid them, and now she can't really know how to deal with them properly. So you've got her story going on, and then you've got Arturo, who come from Argentina and was a revolutionary in Argentina and went through, you know, the disappearing and all that, and has massive regrets over what happened there, but he's quite a forceful, confident person. So those three narratives are going through, and the book blends wonderfully the lives of these artists that are discovering Thomas Girtin with their normal lives, but it also puts Thomas Girtin in an amazing position where he is almost this remedy for their aches and pains throughout their life. When they're talking about him, everything else goes away, everything goes into the background. I mean, there's some wonderful scenes where all the people around them kind of just fade into like this multicoloured backdrop. There's nothing really there except them three talking about Thomas Girtin, talking about how his artwork and how his landscapes made them feel. It's a wonderful book, really, looking at an artist in a very unique way. The artwork is really simplistic and straightforward, quite loose, all done in watercolours as well, which is quite fitting for the theme, obviously. There's some wonderful sections as well where you get full art reproductions of Thomas Girtin's art. 18th and 19th century landscapes are hard to appreciate sometimes, because sometimes you can just glance at them and look away. What this book does is it really focuses on the very kind of, you know, the minutiae, all the major details of these artworks, and discusses them really detailed. You know, how he gets that mood in the sky, how he gets that mood in the landscape, all those types of things. But the book reproduces some of the artwork in fold out pages. Now, I won't fold any of them out and show you, because for me they were great, because for the majority of the book you didn't see Thomas Girtin's artwork really, you just heard the conversations about it. So there was a build, and then all of a sudden there was these fold out pages where you were revealing, like they were when they were going online and stuff like that to reveal the images, you were revealing Thomas Girtin's artwork in the same way and kind of almost discovering it in the book. And that was such a brilliant touch, I think. So I'm not going to ruin the discovery of those paintings by showing you here, but the book certainly folds out in different places to show really high quality reproductions of artwork. But again, it was a wonderful story, and I was engaged pretty much with all the stories from each of the individuals. Like I say, Fred's story was probably the weakest and the least interesting, but that's not to say it was bad, it just didn't interest me as much as the other story. And then Thomas Girtin's story about this young artist, you know, trying to make a name for himself and trying to be one of the premier artists in London at the time, but then sadly dying quite young. The other mad thing is I started reading this about 4 weeks after I became asthmatic, and I've been struggling with asthma now for a couple of months, and asthma is pretty much likely what done our Thomas Girtin in. So when he's out and about walking on landscapes and being out in all weathers, you know, experiencing the emotions of life and landscape, he basically is having asthma attacks all over the place. So when he was coughing on the landscape and stuff, it kind of almost made me cringe a little bit in places because of what I'm going through as well. It was all done beautifully well. A very soft book, you know, there's no real hard, forceful parts. It's all quite nice. It's a lovely pace. It's a very enjoyable read. A nice look at, you know, middle-aged 50, 60-something-year-olds going through life, having life's difficulties, but then discovering something special and new in the past and exploring it. And fundamentally, that's really what it's about, is about the past enriching people's lives now. But either way, that's all I got to say on Thomas Girtin. It is well worth a read, I think. It was recommended to me by someone in the comments, and I thank that person, whoever it is. I'll have to go back to the comments to double check who it was now. But thank you anyway, because it is a very good read. And I got a few more Art Masters by Self-Made Hero to go through, so I can't wait for that. But thank you very much for watching. I will catch you on the next one.